So we're live. We're live. Everyone can see that. We're here for the John Lavinia Success Mastermind General Session on Tuesday, the 25th of January already, 2022. We've been joined by some of our wonderful usual participants, and John has joined. John Apogee, who we haven't seen for ages. Well, I haven't seen for ages anyway, so it's wonderful to see him. He was just exchanging thoughts with me. I am in a different location, as he very observantly remarked. And we're going to fire away today as people dial in. Before we start, just mention the housekeeping, as usual. There is a session later on, 5 p.m. Eastern time, and that is 10 p.m. at the moment UK time. Corporate Curios with Ivier. Ivier is going to do more of her marvelous talks on relationships management, office issues, business issues, from her experience over many, many decades of working in teams and sort of fairly high level functions in terms of dealing with directors, teams, management, projects, delivery, all these sort of issues. So she comes out with some incredibly incisive illustrations of how we tackle certain problems. Very well worth logging onto those sessions. She might dial in if we're lucky, but I will start to fire away. I'm just going to move this screen down a bit so I can see where I am. Anyway, thinking a lot over the weekend, as one does, trying to read a bit of material, as I try to do. It's amazing where thoughts and ideas come from when we're least expecting them. Something you've read before that may strike you in a different way when you look at it again. And that's what happened over the weekend. So the title to the talk started out as being Imagine No Boundaries, but then I'm tempted to call it Freedom, the Killer of Success, to be more controversial and to hopefully get your attention, because freedom, the killer of success, I'll try and alight on, and I'll give you an illustration from a wonderful book as to why that is and how that works. So we'll come to that in a minute, but I wanted to start off really on a very positive note, and this is how I started thinking over the weekend. Imagine a world with no boundaries. That's what I was sitting there thinking, saying, what is it that's stopping us? What's the problem? Let's just imagine that rather than focusing on that and the obstacles, we can imagine that we could choose to do anything we chose to do. What is it that you personally would choose to do? And what would stop you doing that if there weren't any of these boundaries? Would there be anything to stop you? Can you imagine there was nothing to stop you? That's the clarity of mind we've got to try and get to in this exercise. And, why would there be anything to stop you in this kind of a world? What is it are there any hang-ups left? What are they? You can narrow them down. What is it? Because if there's no boundary and no limit, and you can do anything you want, is there still anything that would stop you? So let's focus in on that. But how does it leave us feeling? If we were in that sort of world with no boundary, no limit, we could do anything we wanted, what would it be? How would that actually leave you feeling? Try and sit there, maybe after the talk today, and think about that, because that can tell you a lot. Are you feeling afraid about that? Would that frighten you? Would you feel excited about that? Suddenly there are none of these obstacles you've been grappling with? Or would you just feel plain overwhelmed? And we've talked about overwhelm before. So that's how I got to thinking about this. And, what would that world with no boundaries and the answer to all those questions and other questions tell me about my life and tell you about your life? If I could answer those questions, say, well, hang on, why am I thinking like that? Why am I seeing it like that in this world with no boundaries? That's going to tell me a lot. It's going to tell me perhaps whether I'm doing the right things, the things I should be doing rather than the things I'm made to do or feel that I've made myself to do, but I can't remember why. Would we actually use this new unbounded freedom if we had it? Would I really use it even if I had it? And if not, there's something wrong. What is wrong? If I'm not clear that I could actually use this unbounded freedom in a world with no boundaries, why not? There's something else blocking me. What is it? So perhaps I'm driven more by fear than I should be. Perhaps I'm driven by that rather than hope and optimism. And what can I do about that? So that was the purpose of sitting down to imagine a world with no boundaries where I could do anything I wanted. And what would that be? So let's think about that world and then take those indications from the questions we're going to ask ourselves and take the indications arising and the strong signals that's sending us, and then try to build a plan around that, because we should be able to identify from those questions the things that are stopping us, the things that would still block us even if we thought there were no boundaries. What are we left with? We've sieved out everything like panning for gold in a river, and we're left with a few nuggets in the bottom, which are the problems. So now that we've got those problems in the bottom of our sieve, what can we do to plan around that and build around that? So let's imagine that world with no boundaries and imagine that we really could choose to do anything. And in that world of total possibility, what would your first steps be? So let's think on that after today in this planning. Let's think about that very carefully. We're going to come back to this. But another thing that occurred to me that we always have to keep reminding ourselves of is that everywhere I go, I do see success, because I see people living successful lives because they're working, they're eating, they're paying their bills, they're looking after their family, supporting their friends. That is success. And all the people I know are actually doing that. We can beat ourselves up and say we haven't been successful, but we've all done that. We've all done that. That's what success actually looks like. And Earl Nightingale tried to tell us that in that famous talk some of us looked at. Success, he said, is the pursuit of a worthy ideal. Whatever it is, if it's worthy and we're pursuing it, whether it's looking after a home, building a multinational business, if it's a worthy ideal, pursuing it is a success. And we've got to keep reminding ourselves of that, because otherwise we can get too heavy on ourselves for not having done what we think we should have done by now, or by this age, or by whatever stage we think we're at. Not forgetting, of course, we're all on a different journey, so we're not in competition, we're on our own path. But this is not, by the way, a criticism of the people that are not managing to do that, because there are people out there struggling to survive, and there are going to be very good reasons for that. There always are. And I feel very deeply for people that are in that position. You know, we've got a duty to help those people get back on track and help them out in any way we can. And that's what wonderful organizations, non-profits are actually doing every day, trying to put people back on their feet to enable them to function. But I'm not talking about those people today, but I feel for them very greatly. We are looking at people who we know who are all living a perfectly satisfactory life, paying their bills, functioning, looking after a family. That's success. So I'm going to celebrate that. I'm going to celebrate that. So all we're actually trying to do now in this current debate about our ultimate goals is building on existing success. We're not trying to do something new here. We have succeeded in running a family, a home, getting what we needed, living every day and eating. So let's build on that success, because we've already got a success here to look back on. We took responsibility for ourselves. We got ourselves out there. We turned up to work. We sold our goods. We sold our services, whatever it is we do. And I'm going to celebrate that. And remember that when I'm looking to this next phase of building towards ultimate goals and what we're calling our dreams. So, you know, it's so important and valuable that we do remember those current successes and celebrate just being alive and performing and doing what we're doing now. We just cannot forget that. And if I'm happy to celebrate that, isn't this a good time then just to try for a bit more success? It's just a little bit more success we want right now, and right now in the here and now. I'm just trying to extend beyond where I am, where we all are. Perhaps that means I'm going to have to extend beyond what I actually know, or beyond what I've experienced, but I can make that extension. We can all make that extension. Some of us have already done it in a big way. Some of us are sticking a toe in the water and we're starting to do it. We can make that extension. We really, really can. And that brought me to thinking about the other face of this coin, and hence the title to the talk I mentioned at the outset about how dangerous freedom can be. The danger in the world without boundaries is that we do have freedom. That might sound odd, but I'm going to talk now a little bit and a bit later about fighting freedom, which sounds perverse, but I'm afraid it's an issue. Freedom is dangerous because we can abuse it. In a free world that we're imagining now, you know, in terms of our objectives without boundaries, where we have a choice, we have to confront temptation. We crave comfort. We have all these issues suddenly crowding in on us, and we have to discipline ourselves to deal with them and face them. We run a race against our own competing priorities as well, because there's more than one priority, and we've got to be able to order them and let that competition take place and succeed in pursuing our objective. So this freedom, unfortunately, is a very dangerous thing if we can't deal with it. Now, I then pulled out C.S. Lewis. He's an absolutely brilliant writer, and one of his fantastic illustrations of the human condition is called the Screwtape Letters, which I recommend to anyone. Now, it is written from a religious point of view, but it's equally valid for everything that we're talking about. So he puts it this way. He describes the problem from the point of view of a series of letters written by a servant of the devil to his nephew, who's also a trainee servant of the devil, trying to tempt humans off the path towards the devil. So he gives advice, this uncle, to his nephew, and runs through techniques for knocking humans off course. And of course, by doing this, C.S. Lewis gives us the other side of the story and shows us what it is that human beings confront. So they rehearse and talk about rehearsing people, recruiting people to the dark side, getting them off track. Brilliant. Screw tape letters, C.S. Lewis. Now, he writes to his trainee nephew and refers to the human condition and the fact that humans are given a choice, which, yes, is described in terms of God and Christianity, but it's equally valid here. What he says is God is referred to as allowing us to be disappointed, so that we can be disappointed on the threshold of every human endeavor. He doesn't just make things happen for us. He allows there to be anti-climax arising when we've launched forth onto a new venture, and they give a couple of illustrations. Somebody deciding that they love Greek mythology at school and they try and learn Greek. Somebody trying to take on a new sport and trying to get to the next level. There's this anti-climax when you've got this wonderful goal and suddenly you're pursuing it, and then suddenly there's a bit of a dry patch. It gets tough. The reality starts sinking in, and we hit this anti-climax or disappointment. And the writer describes this climax and disappointment as the transition from dreaming to laborious doing, which is a great phrase. So we have this dream, we have this objective, we're all hell for leather, and then suddenly there's a bit of reality and laborious doing in front of us, and we have this block and this problem, and that's the moment at which we can go off course. And it's worth reading a bit of this out if you can bear with me. So the uncle is writing to his nephew, the devil's trainee, if you like, and says, desiring their freedom, he, God, therefore refuses to carry them by their mere affections and habits to any of the goals which he sets before them. He leaves them to do it on their own, and there lies our, in other words, the devil's opportunity. But remember, there lies our, the devil's danger. If once they, the humans, get through this initial dryness successfully, they become much less dependent on emotion and therefore much harder to tempt. It's a very interesting observation. He continues further. He, God, leaves the creature, us, the humans, to stand up on its own legs, to carry out from the free will alone duties which have lost all relish. So two things he's picked out from a different perspective to show us what he's talking about. He's identified emotion and enthusiasm as factors in failure when we're trying to progress with an endeavor that we've been very enthusiastic about to start with. And then we hit this border of reality when laborious doing sets in. And he also talks about a cause of being open to temptation, taking us off course, and these are the root causes. So it's very interesting observations which struck me. We have freedom to choose. We've got freedom to cross the desert of initial effort, this dryness he's referring to, and to make the transition from dreams to labor, to laborious labor, he's describing it as, to endeavor, and then reality through to our objective. No one's going to do it for us, he's telling us. We have to commit personally to doing it. And that's where it gets laborious and tricky. And that's the moment he's identifying as the most dangerous, when we can go off track, where we've got to be very, very aware of how we're feeling and what we're doing about it. Freedom, in other words, as I said at the outset, is a dangerous thing because we can give up. We can delude ourselves and just not face the facts. We can sit on social media or on streams of entertainment. We can yield to constant daily temptations. We can just throw all discipline aside in a careless, it'll do fashion, and lose track and get disorganized and off track. There are many, many ways freedom is a dangerous thing if we can't take responsibility and control it. So let's take stock of all that for a minute. Though there are a lot of thoughts there, I know, to process, but I do recommend C.S. Lewis, The Screw Tape Letters, if anyone wants to read it. Even though it's written from the point of view of Christianity, it does raise a lot of issues as regards how we behave in our lives every day and how we see people and the impact it has on us. I'm looking today at freedom and what that does to our endeavors. So let's look at the indications, I said, and the strong signals coming from the free world, the boundaryless world, where we have total freedom. And then we have to plan and look at the indications as to our behavior and our responses. We have to plan accordingly, make that plan so we know how to cope with ourselves in this boundaryless world where we said anything's possible. How are we going to cope with ourselves, keep on track? So in that world of no boundaries and possibility, what are my first steps going to be? And then how do I keep going? If I could do anything I chose to do, I just need to build on my current success because I've already had success. We're all living examples of success. What am I going to do? This is what I was saying earlier. We just have to extend now. This is small extensions, bit by bit, beyond where we are, beyond what we already know. We're just adding some pieces, some components. So the problem we've just raised is that there's a break point, the disappointment, discontinuity break point that arises on transitioning from dreaming about something to having to really get your hands dirty and roll your sleeves up. And that's the vital boundary at which we've got to be vigilant, as I said, to break through that dream and anticlimax to this laborious doing. So this is what we're really having to focus on. What can we do to give ourselves the best opportunity then to survive the initial anticlimax we've referred to when we've dreamt of doing something, and get through this disappointment of the reality setting as to how tricky or hard it might be? And this is where the real secret, the elixir for success lies. It's in that. It's as simple as that. Successful people have answered that question. They have achieved great dreams, and they found their way to dream and then cross those dreams to reality, across this desert to hard labor and the dryness of it getting tough, the going getting tough without giving up. That's what they learned to do. Now, we all have our own way of doing that, so I can't lay down one formula for doing it. I might come back to this and will come back to it in some other talks. But if we can focus on this for ourselves and work out what it is that's going to get us over that desert of disappointment, when the initial euphoria has subsided a bit, this is going to do it. This is our answer. We're all unique, so we've got to put a customized framework in place for supporting ourselves through getting over this desert, but we know we have to do it. And this is what our objective needs to be. This is key. So we've got to fight the enemies of success, which are created by freedom, perversely, in battling towards success. We have to fight freedom, which sounds very odd, but it's true. I'm going to talk about it again. I will think of some other points I want to raise on this topic, but I thought I would just come in with a few opening thoughts today so we can have a bit of a debate. I'm going to call this the Freedom Fighters Arsenal, because we're fighting freedom. So not the Freedom Fighters Arsenal, the person fighting freedom's arsenal. Setting definite targets. We've talked about that. We know difficult times are going to come. We know we're going to hit this transition phase from dream to reality. What are we going to do in advance about it so that we know when a bad day hits us, which it's going to do, we've got a plan. We've got to have there are going to be drains on our time, distractions. There are going to be all sorts of diversions and days where we feel disheartened. And these target melting acids are going to start flowing. They're going to start melting our targets if we don't get rid of them immediately. We've got to neutralize these acids. They're corrosive. They corrode our day and they corrode our achievements. So how can we realistically push through to our target when we've left the dream phase and now we've just got to go on sheer grit to get there? We need to be very clear about what drives us, therefore, personally. What drives me? What drives you personally? And how do you achieve that drive for yourself constantly? Now, we're all different. Some of us need deadlines. Some of us need clear space. Some of us need detailed plans for 12 weeks, for a year. We need to know what it is personally that works for us. And if we don't know that, we've got to try several different things until we find it, because we're not going to get any further until that's straightened out in our heads. We've also got to set advanced defenses against disappointment. We know disappointment is going to come. Are you just going to sit there and beat yourself up, or are you going to have a plan B and a process ready in advance to tackle setbacks and depressions and disappointments? You need to know what it is. What am I going to use as my technique for dealing with that so I don't let it get the better of me? We can actually think about that in advance and condition ourselves to fight that freedom so that we're ready to press on and break through. Now, in this desert we've talked about between dream and reality and laborious action, we need a strong compass too. We've got to have a compass. I lose my way every single day in these lists and these actions. The only thing that gets me back on track is my compass, and that is my action list. Because without that, I forget what I was doing, when I was doing it, what was important today. That has to be really, really centralized and straightened out and up to date and constantly maintained like a beautiful garden. Because if it's full of weeds and full of junk, I can't even see the wood for the trees. I don't know where I am. So that is telling me that action list, my compass, where I was intending to go that day, and my interim points on that journey that day. So I need it. I really need it. It's our friend, that compass. Polish it carefully. look after it. It's all we've actually got in these infinite sands of time. It's all we've got as our guide. We can just go badly wrong and go in the wrong direction and lose ourselves in time very, very easily. The other thing is, having relish for the task, as C.S. Lewis referred to, is suddenly gone. We've gone into this reality phase, the dryness where, oh crumbs, the reality of how difficult this is has sunk in. The gloss has gone off it from the project or the endeavor that we set out on. So we need a candle to light again the way ahead so we can remember what it was, because we lose focus on what it was and we get disheartened. And that candle is not only a strong sense of passion as to why you're doing it, why you set out on that journey to that distant goal, but the strong routine which backs it, the routine that just carries on burning when this darkness starts falling, a routine that just burns without our needing to remember to light it. It has to be something so automatic that I don't have to sit there and remember to keep lighting the candle, because it isn't going to work. I'm going to forget to light the candle and get lost. I've got to illustrate and illuminate my way ahead with a candle that just keeps burning every day. So I never get off track in terms of my routine and delivering goals and concluded and completed actions. So those are the initial thoughts I had on fighting freedom in this world without boundaries I've been talking about. So let's remember, in concluding before I open the floor, that we're already, all of us, living successful lives. We're looking after ourselves, we're taking responsibility for our needs. Congratulations to all of us. We're already doing that. All we're looking to do now in all of these sessions we're having is just seeking a little more success in our new endeavor. Success with those ultimate goals and dreams we've all been looking at and exploring to decide what they are personally. So in order to do that, we have to fight and control the darker side of freedom, to fight rampant free will that can just keep us away from our dreams. It's rampant free will we're looking out for, where we just do what the heck we like when we want. It's all disorganized and we get completely diffused. That kind of free will is bad. So go forward, all of us. Let's go forward and conquer this. Fight and tame freedom and free choice and free will in order to achieve success through planning, self-discipline, drive and determination, and the other tools I've just mentioned, the candle, the compass, etc. We've got to do battle with laziness, despondency, temptation. We've got to mainly fight the temptation to seek comfort when there's more to be done before we down tools for that day or that week. There's a tendency to seek comfort rather than discomfort. Things are uncomfortable sometimes. We've got to do them, especially the tasks we don't like. So those were my thoughts for today. And I wanted to throw open the floor and see if that struck a chord with anybody. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. People looking slightly bemused, but we might tempt someone to say something.
Hey, John here. John. Hey, oh my goodness. Thank you. I tuned in a bit late, but thank you for the perspective. Right now, I could say, yes, I have pushed through after the honeymoon, so to speak, right? I have pushed through on certain things, right? And there's other things that, I'm confronting now. Like today, I've got to get a video sales letter out today for one of my projects. And it's, I just got to get my head into it. So I mean, that's part of it, right? Part of it is getting focused and not having, too many things that could impinge upon me. So not sure if that adds a whole lot to what you were talking about, but that's my present time reality. And I'm going to get it done. Here's the thing. I know I'm going to get it done. I know I am. I've already given myself a command, and it's not going to be perfect, but it will be done and it'll work because I know it will. So anyway, thank you, Adrian, and good to see everybody here. Good to see you guys. Thank you.
That's great, John. Thanks. No, I think I've been trying to say, look, we've got to fight freedom, not for freedom. We've already got freedom. It's what we do with it that's the problem. So that's the theme, really. And yeah, you've cracked that. You push yourself. You've worked out how personally to drive yourself forward when you've got a task. But sometimes we haven't quite worked that out. We're not very clear on how to drive ourselves when the going gets tough, and that then becomes a personal challenge in achieving anything, because we just get diffused off, distracted, doing the easy tasks, not doing the difficult ones. There are many facets of this problem, but that's what I'm talking about, really. Yeah, fight freedom, not for it. We've already got it. What are we going to do with it that matters? Anyway, yeah. So John, I hope that makes sense. Ali has a hand up. Lovely to see you. And we've got, and it was lovely to see John as well. John has dialed in. John Apogee today. I haven't seen him for a while. Welcome back. And all our usual participants. Great to see everybody. And Ali, your thoughts would be lovely to hear.
Hi, Adrian. Yeah, what a great topic, and just how true that moment of dreaming to laborious labour. I mean, I love that. It's poetic. It's absolutely just so true. How you get fired up with your positive affirmations and everything, and then it actually comes down to that to-do list and actually doing those jobs that you can't stand. And then if something doesn't go right, and exactly what you've just been saying, I mean, I just really relate to that. And just the things that I have been doing to conquer it is, and the things that I've realized is the consistency, absolute consistency, to get certain jobs done and to shrink the time so that you're not too so it's not too awful. So I think I said a few last year at some point where I had to call some schools, and it's the horriblest job. I hated it so much, and it was a real query as to whether it was actually worthwhile. But I had to do it, so I just shrunk it down to 12 schools a day to call. And then I did it every day, so I got through to 300 schools in the end, which was really good and really interesting to get some data and all the rest of it. So it worked. It absolutely worked. Just shrinking it down to what you could manage, and it's been really fascinating with some other jobs. Some of it is where you have a goal and you have and that you really want, and it's questioning, do you want it enough to do some things that might be tiresome, humiliating even? Are you prepared to just do whatever it takes to get your goal? And I've come across that where I've been having to apply for certain jobs, and I know the people that I'm applying to, and I've seen them and I know them from a different role, so I'm putting myself in a very vulnerable position applying in a different role, and I've literally, my hands been like that on the clicking on the apply to the job thing, thinking, in my head I'm thinking, no, don't worry about this job, don't bother, because all of this chat in my head, no, don't, giving all these reasons why I shouldn't. And then I know this is towards my goal. I want to do it. I have got to do it. It's literally this battle going on in your head. So I think the awareness is so crucial of what you're saying, just that preparation and awareness of knowing that this is going to happen, so you can then stand outside of it and be so objective, and then be able to go forth and go through it. But love it. Thanks, Adrian. Really love it.
That's a great summary, Ali. Great summary. And for anyone that dialed in late and didn't hear it, I was quoting from and referring to, in that quote Ali mentioned, C.S. Lewis, The Screwtape Letters, which is a brilliant illustration of the human condition, written from the point of view of a devil, well, a servant of the devil, writing to his nephew, who's also a trainee servant of the devil, who illustrates how they intend to tempt people off course and get them to the dark side, which then illustrates in a beautiful way our frailties and what we're facing in our relationships, our endeavors, seeking success, etc. I really recommend it to anybody. It's an incredibly well-written book. So Ali mentioned consistency again, the routine, the fact we've got to keep doing it. I love the reference to sort of breaking something into a bite-sized task so that it's more manageable, shrinking things down. Also, of course, if we do things regularly and we practice them, we get faster at it. So if we stick to our core and we keep doing stuff, and we get our procedure straight. And Shannon will tell you, she has procedure sheets for everything. She does it once, and then they hone down the procedure and they write it down. And then they can do it again and again and again. And somebody else can do it again, you give the sheet to. So that sort of practice, bite-sized task routine, getting on with it, really, really helps us fit more in. And then awareness, love the mention of that, Ali. Awareness is so, so important. Being aware in advance, in other words, as to what's going to happen. There are no surprises. We know what's going to happen. We know we're going to be disappointed. We know we're going to get stuck on the things we don't like doing because we got stuck on them before. So let's be ready in advance and have a plan before that happens. And then we wouldn't go into a match, a football match, a tennis match, without a plan as to what we're going to do if a certain thing happens. There's a formation, there's a response, there's a ground stroke, whatever it is. We know, the sportsman knows what he's going to do. He's going to hit the ball in a particular way. He's done it thousands of times, going to do it again. We just don't sit there thinking, oh, the ball's coming, what do we do now? So it's that advanced awareness Ali's mentioned is critical. Love that, Ali, love that. So, John, wonderful to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. It's great to see you back on camera. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Good to be back. I just want to follow up on something John said. I was thinking about, his comment about, getting his video done. And one of the things I used to have a lot of problems with, and still do at times, is trying to be perfect first time out, and which leads to procrastination. I start overthinking things and I want it to be perfect and I end up not doing it. And so I think that just diving into something and doing it, and even if you look at it and go, well, that was kind of good, I need to redo it and spend a little time redoing it, is better than not doing it at all. And I think one of the things that helped me with that, surprisingly enough, was the 5-second rule, where I would just I'd sit and start thinking about something and I go well, what if I did this? I just go, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And I just end up starting doing something. And I think that has helped me a lot over the last year and a half.
John, that's great advice. And how many times have we sat there looking at a task thinking, yeah, I'd like to do it really well, so I'll just put it on the side today because I know I need more time on this. And then suddenly it's been put on the side for a month, and then suddenly it's embarrassing. You haven't replied for 3 months, then you're in a real jam. Not only does it take far longer because you've lost your train of thought, you've now got to explain to someone why you didn't do anything for 3 months. We just dig a bigger and bigger and bigger hole. It's always better to do something and answer the main issues and get back and explain, manage expectations, explain, yes, we're going to get back on this aspect, but do something. Because personally, I've got trapped like this several times thinking, wow, this is a big job, I better put it on one side. And then I get pushed off, I don't get it done. And what a disaster that is for personal organization time. It takes 10 times more. It's the old stitch in time saves 9 quote, 10 times as long to fix it if you do that. So John, that's great advice. And the 5-second rule, I think a lot of people have studied and brought up in calls. So that's nice to hear that one again. It's very, very useful. Anyway, great, John. Thank you. And hope we'll see you again soon. I haven't seen you for too long. Missy's got a hand up.
Hello, Adrian. I also missed the first 5 or 10 minutes. That's one of my favorite books, The Screwtape Letters. And I've always thought of Sir Humphrey as Uncle Screwtape and Bernard as the nephew and the minister as the poor human. That's a British show, but
that's the British Yes Minister comedy show. For anyone that doesn't know it, it's the study of bureaucrats in the civil service and how they run the politicians.
But he is
Uncle
Screwtape.
Just so everyone understands.
He is Uncle Screwtape. But I'm doing so many things now that my normal way of operation does not work. So I got a planner, and representative of what has become of me, I can't find a planner. Okay. So, and Linda Landry said, fill it in on Sundays, because I'm being hit from the flank, from behind, and everywhere I look. And I just called a company trying to help this customer, and they've never heard of this happening before. I get a lot of that. So they don't even know what to do. And now I have to interrupt what I had on my schedule to get this guy in, because he can't do the time I had. So now I have to put somebody else off. And it's like a mountain of minutia. And I'm hoping that filling in this calendar on the planner on Sundays, as Linda suggested, will help me get a hold on something. Because I started my exercise today and then something else took over. And then right now I feel like I'm on a highway that's spinning like this, and I can't find the right road. So everything you said is exactly right. And I like the military, references you made. And Uncle Screwtape is winning on me today, the last few days. So, but I'm gonna fight back and get myself into the proper. You mentioned something about Shannon having procedure sheets. Is this something available or?
Well, if you speak to Shannon and go on any of her sessions, at some point she will run you through the
I've never
importance
seen
of-
her. I've never
well, there
seen
you
her
go.
listed.
Well, she runs courses, the CEO Freedom courses.
I
which you
bought
can
it,
sign
but I
up for.
don't even have time to do it. But
Well, it's a very important course because Shannon is running through the skills you need in business to do everything from handling your branding to your image, right through to hang on procedures. Because if they go off and decide they want to launch a new social media campaign, or they're using a new platform, they write down everything they've learned in terms of A, B, C, D procedures for getting the job done, so that the next time they do that job, which might be a week later, but it could be a year later, it is right there. And I do the same thing, because it takes hours and hours to hammer out these procedures and work out how to open that bank account, how to open that social media platform, how to make that post. So once you've worked it out once and you can remember all the wrinkles and the problems, write them all down. And then all you need to do is pull up the procedure on your screen next time, and it will cut your time more than in half, because it just is there. Oh yes, I remember that now. I've got to do A, B, C, D, job done. Now Shannon absolutely swears by that, and so do I. And her course is great because it's dealing with every facet of business, Missy.
I started it and then got into another business. So, but I will go back. I may have it already. So
well worth it, because it's not a talking shop, it's practical. How do you actually do it? And I think anyone that's done it that's in the group will tell you that it's practical, hands-on. This is what you have to do, not just theory, doing it, because that's it. Now you raised the planner, and I'm so glad that Linda was telling you to fill it in on Sunday. Linda, by the way, has turned herself into a powerhouse because she's been studying all these problems, really fought them, and is coming out the other side with actual action and has changed her approach. So you can do that too. Linda's done it. And now she's able to post stuff and tell us about her experience, which is great to see. So, but John will tell you, we can talk about action points, and I mentioned earlier on those being my compass, but they are worthless if I don't tie them to time. They have to be tied to time. John talks every week about time, and the fact that if it's not in his diary, it doesn't mean anything, because unfortunately tasks need time. So everything comes back to your diary. It's no good having this wonderful action list on Sunday if I haven't put a slot in for that task on Wednesday, and I get to Friday and say, crumbs, I still haven't got time for this. It just won't get you anywhere. So it is having the action list clear in the first place. Those are the bricks that you're going to build the wall with that week. Here are my bricks. I've got to put those into a wall. John will then tell you, you've got to know which layer of the wall you're building on which day. Otherwise, those bricks ain't going to get into that wall. So, both of those things are critical. It's not just one of them. They both go together. And that's where a lot of people, including me, fall down. We have this optimistic view of the week. The week looks great. We've got the action list on Sunday. Yeah, no problem achieving this. And then the end of the first day, I've done none of the key tasks on that list because something else happened. It was Monday. Stuff crowded in. You've got to stop that. We all have to stop that. We've got to break those cycles and say, no, this is going to happen today. And that also is where I refer to comfort. We seek comfort. We want to down tools at 6, 7, 5, whatever it is personally we do. Sometimes we've got to push through and say, no, this is really important. If I don't do this today, as you said, you're putting somebody else off because now you've got to do it tomorrow and then it's not going to come back in time. It all has a snowball effect. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough about it, but I think it's really, really important. Thank you, Missy. That's useful. And Virginia has her hand up. Virginia, great to hear you.
Hello.
Hi.
I don't like you, Adrian, and I love you. I love you. Okay, but God, you have a way of just cutting through and getting to the core of the issues and, bringing that reality to our forefront. So completely agree with everything you've said, 100%, 110%. And I have been working on this. In fact, this past week, I'm looking at a little stack right over there of journals that are for me to reference every day. So one of them is, your personal part of your Smarters plan. So you should write something. So I've just created one because the old one is full. Created one for 2022 that I already had. I have these. I mean, I look at some of this stuff and go, man, I started writing it here in 2013. What happened? I said I was going to do all these things back then. What happened? And some others that I've got, I have been wanting to catch up on the book study notes because I have book study notes all over the place and missing a lot of them. So I have this one journal now, and I think of Stuart and Lindsay, who are so good about taking their notes of the book study. And if I had done that from the beginning, I wouldn't have to go back and catch up. Because I own some of these books, but I think it's nice to have like a Cliff Notes version, just so I can go through a heavy reference thing. Oh, I said, oh yeah, Napoleon Hill said this, or Joseph Murphy said that. Let me go back to that. And what bothers me too is thinking, how did I forget this stuff? Not just the stuff I've learned, but I will start writing in something and I'll start working on that, and then you miss a day or two, and then all of a sudden I forget that even existed. I have a book around here somewhere that when I went on the I want to say Miracle Mind, but that's not the right word. When I did T. Harv Ekker's course in person, and I know Ingrid has been to his seminars as well and his things, but on what is the name of his course? But anyway, he's got a little booklet about money management and money mindsets. And I started that 90 days in 2007 and got through like 10 days and then forgot about it or didn't get to it. But what bothers me is I forgot that even existed, that it's even in my house. So like Missy, who can't find her, I've got to find and take all these things and put them on one place so I can see them every day. And I can remember every day that these are things I want to, resources that I want to use and continue expanding. What I do a little here for Beamer, because actually I think since I've been using the Beamer for like 6 months, which increases blood flow and gets the oxygen to my brain, I think that it was the brain fog and senior moments in the past that kept me maybe from remembering that I even had these resources or that they even were available to me in my house. And so I feel now that physically, mentally, I'm in a better spot, not just on a mental, but also on a somatic body level, that, yeah, I'm not going to forget this stuff anymore. It's going to be here. I'm going to remember that I have these resources. I'm going to go to them. And hopefully that will lead me into completing my day with my to-do lists, which I've started a new book on. Can we have this all in one place? I like things compartmentalized, categorized. I can't just have them random. I need to know where they are, where I can go to them, and where I can find them. So this is what's coming up for me. And you're like a double-edged sword, you pierce through. You really do. And I appreciate you so much for it. Thank you.
That's very kind of you, Virginia. I can only do that because I've made so many mistakes and lived exactly what you're describing. So, you can then look at the other side of the problem and say, what have I done about it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened to us all. You've raised so many thoughts there. It's hard for me to comment on them all in one session, but, list proliferation is a massive problem. We start writing a list, particularly if we travel or we move between locations. We start a list, then we have another list, then we have the list for today, then we have our main list, then we try a new piece of software, and then we have another list. We have to get everything in one place, whether it's categorized or compartmentalized with cardboard boxes, dividers, software, to-do lists in virtual software, it doesn't matter. If we have more than one location, we start to lose track because we're competing between this, we can't follow them, then we forget to update one of them, the whole thing goes out the window. It all gets disjointed. So you can really only beautifully maintain one centralized set of lists if they're going to be meaningful. And if they're going to be available when John is in your head saying, put it in the diary in a time slot, because you have to do that. And you can only do that from one list in an organized way. So you're right about that, Virginia. But I do think the problem you're describing, also the senior moment problem, is not a senior moment problem. Yes, it's great to keep ourselves fit and oxygenated, but this is about routine, because what routine does is embed things. And we've gone through this. You've got to spend, I think it was said in previous sessions, about 30 days, John brought this up, repeating things continuously before it becomes a habit. If we don't do that, then we forget the resource even existed because it hasn't become part of our day before we went off doing it for 10 days. And then we forgot about it because it just wasn't embedded. Taking my vitamins, getting up, doing my exercise in the morning is so embedded. I don't even think about doing it. And that's what I was describing when I talked about the candle that burns without you having to light it. Is if you have to keep remembering to light that candle, you forget. You forget. It has to be automatic and habit, and you build habit by repetition. And once you've forced yourself concentrating for 30 days to do it, you'll remember it automatically. And that's our biggest weapon in fighting that, I think. You know, complete the task. You also raised this aspect. And this is part of the procedures discussion we've had about Shannon this morning. When you write a procedure, we often stop before the task is complete. We don't file it. We don't put the reminder note on the end. We don't write the procedure line saying, I better remember not to do that next time. We stop when we've paid the bill, done the front end of the job that we think is the important bit, but we don't finish the task. We put it on one side, we leave the book over there. We don't organize it back into where we want to find it next time, where we know we're going to retrieve that piece of information, where we want to remind ourselves not to do that again. We don't finish the task. So procedures are often flawed because they stop dead of the end. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that's actually part of the task that we don't consider to be part of the task. And that's where I go wrong a lot. I've got to force myself to say, no, right now, here, while it's fresh in my mind, this is part of the job. This is going to sink me in 6 months when I forgot what I was doing. So that's a crucial part of this for me, to finish the whole task and actually decide what the whole task really is. Don't just say, I've paid it, great, put it on one side, put it in the file. No, that's going to cause you problems later, as you're describing, Virginia. So great thoughts. You've raised a lot of very, very important issues there.
I want to just throw into that, as Shannon says, and I've taken all her courses and I go back and look at it, writing procedure is so time consuming, but so valuable. So I post a free cookie recipe every week. Many of you know that. And I started a Word document that, after about doing it 5 or 6 times, I said, let me just start writing this down, because I go and sit down to do it and I forget, what was I supposed to do? Where do I start? So now I've done it and it's not finalized, but that's okay. I got most of the steps in there. And then every week, if I figure out some other step I missed, I just open the document and put it in so that I could turn that over to a virtual assistant or something and know exactly how to do this process of posting this media for me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a lot what she does is, you know, if you're going to post to social media, make sure you do it completely detailed so someone else can just look at it and do it flawlessly without questions.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
Virginia. There are 2 phases in what we're doing. We're doing it all ourselves early with our sleeves rolled up as the entrepreneur, with the boxes open, doing it all. And then to grow, we have to be able to delegate. Otherwise, we're never going to grow. To delegate, you have to have very detailed procedures so somebody knows what you expect of them, particularly if you have very, very specific requirements for quality control or delivery or whatever it is you're worried about. You've got to be able to convey that to somebody, and you can only do that with a very, very detailed note procedure. It's very important, but it's important for you when you're starting. Otherwise, you won't be able to do your job properly, so you'll never get to the delegation phase because you'll never grow anyway. So these things are so important. And you're absolutely right, Virginia. And look at Amazon, you know, classic example. There are so many bells, whistles, twists, turns, changes. You've got to note them there and then back into your procedure and make sure you do it right the next time. Otherwise, you won't get paid. You get shut down. Your listing doesn't go well. Your PPC breaks. you've got to remember these things there and then when you've learnt the lesson and you've paid for all the training and you've done the hours of sweat that it took to understand it. That's when to write it down as a procedure. So absolutely agree, Virginia, with that. Absolutely. Anyway, it's been a very interesting session. I hope for everybody, it has for me. We've got 10 minutes to the top of the hour. We might end a bit early if no one has any further thoughts on this. So fighting freedom. We've got freedom already, so we've got to fight it. We're not fighting for it. That's my theme. Fighting rampant free will, which we don't control properly. I will also remind you, housekeeping-wise, AVA speaking, 5 p.m. Eastern Time US, 10 p.m. UK, with a corporate curio session. Well worth dialing into if you can. We'd love to see everybody there. AVA is a great speaker and will speak on all sorts of business aspects of projects, teams, management, challenges. Great insights into how to deal with issues that we're all going to face in business. Thanks, everybody. Great to see you all here. Great session. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate the comments. It's the 25th January general session, John Lavinia's Success Mastermind, wrapping up for today. See you all later with Ivier.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye for now. Bye. Bye. Bye.